Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to Live from the Ranch. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are from. Once again, this month, my co-host is Juliana DeWillems of JW Dog Training and Behavior.
Everybody.
Uh-oh,
Welcome to
I am
Live
sorry.
from the Ranch.
I have
Good
another.
morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are from.
Where's that?
Once again, this month, my co-host
I'm
is
trying
Juliana
to.
DeWillems
I have another
of
computer
JW
over
Dog
here that's
Training
suddenly
and
talking to me, and I am totally lost as to where that is. I got to see
You're
if
too prepared.
I was well too prepared for what if something went wrong. And I can't shut this off. I'm not even on. I haven't logged in on this computer.
Is there a mute button?
I'm trying. There. I took care of it. Okay.
Yay. Good job jumping right in.
So sorry for that little snafu. I had an extra computer ready to go should something go wrong. I didn't expect it to come on live, and I just realized where that came from. I was on YouTube where we're going live to, and I had that screen open and I'd forgotten about it. So
and we went live, which is good. You
and we
confirmed
went live
everything's
and it came
working.
out, and then it was even worse because it's delayed apparently. So I guess what everybody's hearing is like 10 seconds from now that you'll actually hear me say this stuff. So we all got a little behind the scenes look at the inner workings of all of this, but now that's done. How are you, Juliana?
I'm great, Ken. It's one of those months where we had it early last month and late this month. So it feels like it has been forever since I saw you.
It has been. But of course, I follow you on Instagram. And one of the things that is just caught my attention and I just have to ask about is these kittens. Tell me about the fact that if you don't follow Juliana on Instagram or on social media, you should, because she has lots of great content there. But the kitten story is just sort of an interesting thing. So tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yes, we live in the suburbs and we have feral cats around our house. And we discovered that one of the feral cats had kittens. And both me and my wife have worked in sheltering for a long time, animal sheltering. So we know that best practice in places with resources is to get feral kittens inside if you can get them at the right age, because then you can socialize them to live as house cats and live comfortable, safe lives inside. So we spent a week trying to catch these little guys. We got mom, we got them. Mom is spayed now, and she's back out and happy. And I have two little 6-week-old kittens living in my house. And I am not a cat person. I'm highly allergic. I've never had cats before. So it's been a big learning curve for me.
Oh, I can't imagine, because they are awfully cute. I'm not necessarily thinking of myself as a cat person either, but when you posted those pictures of these cute little faces, it's kind of like hard not to be drawn into them. But then when I heard that you were allergic, I thought, oh my goodness, how are you handling that?
Well, so the thing about these kittens is, being that they're feral, they are slow to warm up to people. And it's really important, as in my practice as a trainer and behavior consultant, that I give animals a lot of choice and a lot of freedom and agency. And so I'm not really touching them all that much. You know, if they come to me and they're kind of interested in a little scratch and then they're on their way. So I've taken a very hands-off approach so far, and that has been very beneficial for my allergies and for them. They're really coming out of their shell.
So big question is, are you going to get to a point where you are going to adopt one of them yourself, or are you going to move them on and have them leave your house once they're all healthy and doing well?
Well, first of all, I know they would be fine separated, but I will not be separating them. They will be staying together for the rest of their life. I don't know. It's the big question mark. I wish I had a crystal ball that will I get over it or not? But either way, they will be happy and healthy wherever they end up.
Okay. So my last question is, are you planning to keep us updated through Instagram as to how it's going and what you're doing?
I don't think I'm capable of not, plastering them all over the internet. First of all, they are just so cute. And I have just so much. I'm really kind of processing all of this through social media. So yes, everyone will be very, very much updated about their probably every hour of their lives at this point.
Well, I've enjoyed the posts, and if you haven't followed them, it's been going on for about a week now, right? It's been fascinating to follow. So I encourage people to look into that. Well, Juliana, I think we have a great episode ahead, as we're going to talk about all things therapy dog related. But before we do that, I thought I would take a few minutes to take a break and talk about some KPA live classes that we have going on right now. And I want to tell everybody about them. We have new classes that we're going live with almost every single month. Every one of these classes is 4 to 6 weeks, and they feature real-time training and coaching from some really incredible teachers. Right now, we have enrollment is open for puppy socialization and adolescent dog familiarization. That is with instructor Laura Van Arendonk-Baugh. This promises to be a really fascinating class. And if you have a puppy and you're interested in taking the class, really it's for young puppies all the way to a year of age. So don't feel like you just have to stick with that traditional puppy age if you're interested in that class. And starting registration next week on July 12th, Terry Hayward is going to be doing a live class called Saying Goodbye to Separation Anxiety. So if you're interested in either of those classes or any of the many other classes that we have coming up throughout the year, go to KarenPryorAcademy.com for more information about that. Now, I want to get right to our program, so let me introduce you to our two guests today. Joining us will be Pat Koven and Breanna Norris. Pat, in 2018, Pat and her Aussie Willie became a certified therapy team with Love on a Leash, and they visited colleges, nursing homes, libraries, schools, children's centers, and rehabilitation facilities. And then it was in 2019 that Pat became a chapter leader for Love on a Leash. That's located in Maine, and that position supervises new teams as they start their therapy dog journeys. And she coordinates therapy dog teams across 40 different service locations. Pat's also a graduate of KPA. She is a KPA certified training partner, and her dog Willie, who's there with her, and we're going to be meeting him during this broadcast today, was her partner dog in the program. She started her own company, which focuses exclusively on behavior modification and cooperative veterinary care. And she works with veterinarians and veterinary behaviorists around the country. And Pat also works for Cattle Dog Publishing, Low Stress Handling, where she edits and writes articles and courses on animal behavior and the human-animal relationship. And she's trying to continue on the legacy of Dr. Sophia Yin, which I think is great work. She's been a licensed veterinary technician since 1992. You can see Pat's on the screen right now. And also having joined us just now is Breanna Norris. And this is, I'm glad to see that Breanna's not frozen on the screen. She was earlier today, but we see her moving around. She's worked with service dogs and therapy dog teams in both group and private settings, and has taught in-person group therapy dog prep classes since 2016 for her own business, Canine Insights, in Maine, and for others as well. Teams that Breanna has worked with have gone on to successfully work in hospitals, nursing homes, libraries, schools, and universities. And Breanna's focus is teaching people how to work with as a team with their dog. Breanna is a graduate of the KPA Academy, the Karen Pryor Academy. She's a certified training partner, but she's also our alumni relations coordinator. And she works to help coordinate and keep our alumni up to speed on things that are going on here within KPA. Her experience also includes teaching animal training and animal care courses, and currently she guest lectures for universities and rescue groups on animal training topics. And she also holds a master's degree in anthrozoology. Thank you both for being here today. I'm so pleased to have you both here. Let's get right into it. I know that you are both therapy dog trainers, and tell us, one of you, could you talk a little bit about what is a therapy dog? What is it that therapy dogs do?
So therapy dogs are invited by facilities. You need permission from the facility to come in, and they're there to give love to whoever wants it. And that could be a resident in the nursing home. That could even be a nurse working in a hospital. So they fill that loving need. So they're there for anybody who wants to just come and hug on them.
So I think that's fascinating, but I think there's a lot of confusion in our community about what is a therapy dog as opposed to a service dog, an emotional support animal. There are so many different kinds of animals. Therapy dogs are different from those other types of animals. And how are they different? And what is the difference between that and many of the other kind of service animals that you hear about?
A really oversimplified way to think about it is a service dog is for you. And when you train a therapy dog, you're training them to work with other people, right? So your service dog is doing service work for you as an individual, and your therapy dog is a dog that you would take to facilities or different programs to work with the public.
I love that. That's a really interesting. I've never heard it explained that way before, and that's a really good way to look at the difference. So often people have a service dog, and it may be of various types of service dogs, but it's doing work for them. It's a
Right.
hearing ear dog to help me because I'm hard of hearing, or it's a mobility assistance dog that's helping me because I have difficulty getting around, as opposed to a therapy dog, which you're suggesting is being trained to work with others and work with other people.
That's right. Yeah, I wouldn't train a therapy dog to work with me, right? That might be my emotional support dog, but a therapy dog we would take to hospitals, to libraries. Monica Callahan, who is another KPA CTP, takes one of her dogs to an airport, which I just think is a wonderful program that she started.
And does the airport invite her in? And what is she doing? She's just greeting passengers.
I think comforting, right? A lot of people are nervous about flying. And so getting to see a therapy dog and interact with a nice, friendly therapy dog before takeoff, just to comfort people.
Well, that's really fascinating.
Yeah,
So,
I had never heard of that as a therapy dog. I thought that was really great.
so each of you work with therapy dogs, but you actually have worked as a team with your dog to go unique
I
places.
have not.
Oh, you have not.
Nope.
Pat's done that.
Yep.
So tell me, as you work as a therapy dog team, what is often expected of you when you get to a hospital or to a school, or is it really different depending upon the location?
It depends on the location, because it depends on the age group, or even the type of people that are there. I often find when you've been doing it for a while, the dog sets the stage. So Willie and I have been doing it for 6 or 7 years now. He goes in and he just commands all the attention, and they're there to see him, and he just knows who needs what and how to work it. I just more or less take a back seat. I am Willie's driver. People come seek him out. If they want to love on him, that's fine. Sometimes people want to talk to the human that's behind the leash, so we'll sit and talk. But otherwise, it's just a communication that develops between the person and Willie. And I just hover in the background, and I'm there to lend support if I need.
Well, that's really cool. And by the way, we just had one of our viewers, Karen, wrote in and said that they are a therapy dog team at the Seattle-Tacoma airport, and she says the travelers and the staff love it. So I guess that's not as unusual as Breanna and I thought it might be.
Yeah,
I had
I
never
love that.
heard of that before, but that's really kind of cool.
It's a great idea.
And how do facilities, if they're interested in having a therapy dog, if it's a nursing home or a school, do they reach out to organizations like Love on a Leash? Is there a place that you can go and just find out about various therapy dog organizations in your area?
A lot of times it's word of mouth. They'll find out what therapy groups are in the area. So sometimes I'll get notification from our main office, who's out in California, and they'll forward me an email. Otherwise, I have a lot of people reach out to me through Facebook and just say, hey, I'm located at a children's center in such and such a town. Would you be interested? And I do my best to line them up. So a lot of times it's word of mouth, and just it depends what area you're in. So more therapy groups might be more concentrated in areas than others.
I kind of feel like there's probably a lot of people who this is intriguing to them that say, I'd like to be a therapy dog trainer. Do you, as a therapy dog trainer, also have to be kind of a social butterfly since you're going into these locations, or do you really let the dog do the work and you can take a back seat? I'm just curious as to how outgoing and social you need to be if you're going to be taking your dog into those kinds of situations.
I'm laughing at you because I'm about the shyest person you could ever want to meet, and I don't want to talk. And even talking to you is a little bit painful today. So Willie and I have a great relationship, so he just sort of takes over. He's made me much more confident, so I am able to talk to people more than I ever was before him. But a lot of times it's just they bond. A dog comes in and you see their faces light up and they gravitate to him. So I just kind of hover in the background and he does his thing.
So I can see how it's possible when your dog is well trained and good at that kind of work, you can blend into the background and almost
Yes.
go unnoticed. That's interesting. I kind of anticipated that response from you, Pat. I know that coming on to a broadcast like this was a little bit uncomfortable, but we really appreciate you being here, and I'm going to do my best to make it as easy as possible for you.
You do.
And Breanna, you were saying when I was asking about being a team, you said that you haven't been a team, but you do teach people to be good teams, and you work with quite a variety of people who train their own therapy dog to go to places like that. And does it require a different set of skills for different kind of areas? In other words, is a therapy dog who's going to go to a group of school children in a classroom different than a therapy dog that goes to a nursing home, different than a therapy dog that goes to the airport, for example? Are there different skills, or is it the same set of skills that are just repurposed? Help me understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different skills. So if you have a dog going into a children's reading program, those dogs are most likely going to lie down, and they're pretty much going to stay put. So they might put their head on a pillow. Some might put their head kind of target near the child's leg and rest their chin on the floor. Most of those dogs tend to fall asleep, which is really good. I just had a little girl in here who had both of my dogs snoring, and I actually had to escort everybody out because the snoring was really loud. But she was reading her books to the dogs, and they just fell asleep with that. So some dogs would really like that. There's not a lot of touching necessarily, but it's a pretty relaxing type thing if they like being around kids. Whereas other activities, like maybe going to a hospital or a nursing home, those dogs might be going from room to room to room and might actually be walking around quite a bit and interacting with a lot of people at once or in one day. So it really could vary. And some dogs, of course, might prefer certain environments over others, right? So hospitals, things like that, they might be going in elevators and going into lots of different environments. Some dogs seem to really enjoy that, right? Seeing people at the desk, seeing the nurses, and other dogs are going into maybe just one room or two rooms, like a library setting.
Well, that makes sense. And overall, I'm curious as to how do you determine before you even start training a therapy dog, you probably want to ask yourself, is this an appropriate dog to do this kind of work? Is this a dog that will thrive in a therapy environment, or who would not? How do you go about making those assessments?
A lot of times it's shaping. So it's the dog's personality. If he seems to gravitate toward people and be that social butterfly, that's a great start. Willie started out with nursing homes because he used to be a very go, go, go. He loved going from room to room. But as he got older and started developing some health problems, he started gravitating more towards libraries and reading rooms, and he just lies down. So just over time, it's become his preference. So knowing his body language, we've made adjustments. Some dogs are just too wound up, especially those that are younger and getting started. So they might actually do better in nursing homes where they're going from room to room. So it's more active, and
Right.
It's working with the dog's age more.
Well, that does make sense. And I would assume a big part, we were talking about you blending into the background, but I would imagine a big part of your role as a handler of a therapy dog is making sure that your dog's needs are being met and assessing whether people are doing the right thing, and interceding if someone's starting to handle or do something with your dog that's inappropriate. There is a lot of work that goes into that, isn't there?
Yes. So a lot of times it's even just asking for things. I'll make it into a game type conversation with him. And depending on his quote unquote answer, that'll tell me he needs to move on. Or if he's just fidgeting and getting more comfortable, I'll say, "Are you okay?" And he'll lie down further. But if he starts giving me an agitated look or doesn't want to do that chin rest, I know it's time for him to move on.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Well, this is maybe a good time for us to take us to a short break, because I want to tell people about the fact that the two of you have put together a new KPA course all about becoming a therapy dog. And so we just want to let you know that we're going to talk about this a lot more. But if you're interested in becoming someone's dream team, you can learn to teach your dog the skills of therapy dog work and discover just how big of a difference you and your dog can make together. You can learn at your own pace, on your own schedule, right from your own home. And that, to find out more about that course, you should go to KarenPryerAcademy.com. It is an on-demand course, meaning you can take it at any time. And the creators of the course and the instructors of the course are our two guests today. And so they can tell us a lot more about that. So Pat and Breanna, I'm excited about this course. We just launched the course fairly recently, and I, of course, have had the chance to go through and look at the course and see the materials that you've provided. And you're providing a lot of really in-depth stuff. What made you want to create a course of this kind?
So Pat and I both live in rural Maine, and the reason I got into therapy dog training, which is I'm not a therapy dog handler, right? So I was being asked by a number of people for help. They wanted to train their dog to be a therapy dog, or maybe they needed to work on certain behaviors to go into different environments. So they had called me to help them, but this wasn't my specialty by any means. And it's not really, I don't volunteer to do therapy dog handling like Pat does. And so we both live in rural Maine, and there's just not a lot of options, right? People can't go down the road to their dog training facility and take a therapy dog class. So this is something that we've heard, both of us have heard from a number of people saying, we'd really like to do this, but we just don't have any place nearby, right? And they don't want to drive 2 or 3 hours to a therapy dog training class.
So what kinds of things do you talk about in the course? What kinds of things do you teach the person who takes the course? What do they learn to do in this course?
Go ahead, Brandon. No. A lot of it's the basic skills to start. So it's sort of mimicking CGC preparation, but without having to do that eval. So to find a trainer to even do sit down, things like that, you could be driving an hour each way to find a trainer. So this takes you through all the basic skills like sitting, lying down, and relaxing, because dogs might have to stay on a mat for upwards of an hour or so. Chin rest we talk briefly about. We talk about nose targeting, using touch. That's a wonderful behavior to use in therapy work. A lot of duration, we cover that in the second part, because that's preparing for the organizations who do evals. So it's sort of a combination of your basic and your intermediate skills, preparing you for finding that organization who can do the eval for you.
And I would also add to that, so we're teaching the behaviors, the skills that you need or your dog will need in those settings, but also for the people, we really wanted to focus on reading your dog's body language, because this is such an essential skill when you're working with a therapy dog. So they might have all these skills, but are they comfortable doing them? And it's something that we have to check again to make sure our dog is comfortable in that setting. And like Pat was talking about with Willie, he was comfortable in that nursing home setting at one point, but now he's more comfortable in a library setting. And so that's what we really wanted people to be thinking about, right? So you can't just kind of check a box and say, my dog is forever a therapy dog and he will always, every single day, no matter what, be comfortable in this scenario. We want people to be checking in with their dog all the time and reading their body language and saying, is this what you want to be doing? Because we're ultimately asking our dogs to volunteer for a position. So we want to make sure every single day, every single minute that they want to do that. And they should have the chance to opt out if they're saying, I don't really want to do this today, or maybe there's something going on in the environment that they're uncomfortable with. So we really wanted to empower people to empower their dogs to get them out of that environment if it's not the right fit right then.
We also
go ahead.
We also want people to be aware that it's a little bit more the dog's choice. So Willie is happier at some visits than I would be. I would never have thought of going to libraries and having kids read. I grew up volunteering with senior citizens, so that's more my natural. For him, he's chosen children. So at this point, his choice is to do children's visits, and that's fine.
No, I really appreciate, one of the things I really liked about the course a lot is that emphasis on being able to interpret the dog's body language, being able to have that conversation with the dog. I would certainly encourage that kind of a understanding is probably important for every dog trainer, no matter what they're doing, whether they're whatever kind of work. It's good to be able to read your dog, but I realize I like the fact that there's an entire lesson in the course that is really talking about how to read your dog's body language and understanding it. And I thought you both did a great job of putting that portion together. So who is the course designed for? Is it designed for me? I want to teach my dog to be a service dog, or is it for the person who is an instructor of other trainers and I'm interested in taking the course so that I can do what Breanna does and teach the course to others? Is it more geared toward one type of trainer than the other?
It's really geared towards dog owners, dog guardians who want to get into therapy dog work. So they might be unsure if this is the right thing for their dog. They might be somebody who just doesn't have local dog training classes nearby. And so they want to dive into this topic and they need to do it from home for whatever reason. So it's really geared towards those dog guardians rather than dog trainers.
Okay, that's good to know. That's really, really helpful. And now, are there certain dogs that just should not become therapy dogs? Is there certain traits or characteristics you would say, no, this is not a dog to take into a therapy dog learning? Or could all dogs benefit from the training that you do for therapy dog training?
I'm laughing because my youngest dog really should be a therapy dog. He loves people. He seeks them out. But if he sees another dog, he doesn't stop barking. So I finally just come to peace with he's not going to be a therapy dog because he's going to have a meltdown if a dog is nearby.
Right.
So I think it has to be innate in them to a degree, and we can shape behaviors to make them more comfortable. But we always have to be aware, is that the dog's choice?
Right.
So I wouldn't say any breed is any better than any other. It's the dog and their personality.
But you are looking for, you'd want to assess the dog and say, you know what, you're either too out of control and trying to get that animal under, restrict its behavior so that it can be calm in an environment. If you know that's not going to be comfortable for them, you might say to yourself, maybe this isn't the right dog for therapy dog work.
That's right. And some dogs, I worked with a collie recently who was really people focused, and the dog really, really liked people, but jumped. And so the person who had this dog, she said, oh, I would really like him to be a therapy dog, but he can't because he's a jumper. And that's not true at all, right? So this dog had, like Pat said, that innate ability. He was really a social bug, but he jumped. So jumping's a pretty easy thing to work with, right? We can kind of shape that behavior, but the dog had this natural ability, and also pretty naturally it was comfortable in different environments. So if it's something like jumping, or we're looking at, puppy mouthing or things like that, that's not a deal breaker. The things that we would look at where we would say this dog might not be suitable would be obviously a fearful dog, a dog who just says, I'm not social, right? I mean, there's lots of people who don't want to volunteer in nursing homes or libraries, and there's lots of dogs who don't want to do that either, and that's okay.
No, that makes sense. It's interesting, as I watch the chat window, it seems that a lot of our viewers actually have experience. They're either therapy dog handlers themselves. They really do a lot of this kind of work. And one of them pointed out that, that it's not limited to dogs that do therapy work, that there are many, many other species that can be used for therapy dog work. Does an organization like Love on a Leash certify anything other than dogs for therapy dog work, or what other kinds of animals do you certify?
We will certify cats and rabbits. I have none in my chapter. I used to do therapy work with one of my cats years ago. She used to love going to nursing homes. But I know a lot of other organizations will do horses. I've seen miniature donkeys. I think that's most of what I've seen.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say certainly, because I have miniature donkeys here, they certainly have the temperament, I think, to be, at least what I would imagine would be really mellow, really enjoy tactile, seem to enjoy doing those kinds of things. I could see them being really good therapy dog animals. If someone wanted to take this course, but they were interested in working with a cat or working with a miniature donkey or something like that, are the skills and behaviors necessary for those other animals similar, or would it be a totally different kind of approach?
It is similar. You might have to adapt it for the species, but the skills would be the same. Yeah.
Was that what I saw you were about to answer, Pat? Did you have any other thoughts on that?
Well, I was going to say for Love on a Leash for cats, it's more, they're not looking for like a test, an eval or anything like that. But you need a letter from the vet saying that the cat appears to be calm and relaxed, is current on vaccines. It's similar for rabbits too. Dogs have to go through the more extensive testing.
So I know that your partner Willie is there today, and I understand that he's a therapy dog. Can you give us an example of something you might do with him at a visit?
Willie, come here. All right, watch. Today he won't do it. Up you go. That's it. Here, all right. Do chin. There. So this is a chin rest. He'll often use it for wheelchairs. So for people who have lack of mobility in their hands and can't.
Uh-oh. I Pat has not frozen once all day, and all of a sudden, now that we're working with Willie, she froze for a second there. Let's see if she comes back. Oh, yeah. She's gonna probably just have to come back on. How do you use a behavior like a chin rest? Is it, other than just it's cute, but I noticed that she suggested a wheelchair use for that.
So putting a chin on someone's leg or on the side of the bed can be really nice if they're in a hospital bed. Also, if they're in a library setting, having the dog rest their head on a pillow. It can also be a really fun kind of trick that maybe kids could do, or people in a nursing home or another type of facility, that they can interact with the dog rather than just petting them. So they might ask the dog to come up and do a chin rest in their hand, or we could also put something like a washcloth on the person's knee, or even on like a nearby coffee table or something, and the dog can do a chin rest. So it's a nice interactive kind of activity for the people to do with the dog, as well as it's a nice target for a therapy dog.
So in the course itself, the chin rest is that a behavior that's included in you actually teach quite a few individual behaviors, which are, like Pat suggested, is very similar to some of the stuff that you do in a CGC test, a canine good citizen test. What other behaviors? Give some examples of other behaviors that you teach or talk about in the course.
Yeah, so we might do a recall. We might do targeting on a mat, so their full body is lying down on a mat. That can be a really useful one. We also recommend that people teach a few behaviors as kind of tricks. So like I was saying about the chin target, because again, for that interactive element, depending on where you're going to do therapy work, it's nice to be able to interact, give people some things that they can do with the dog. Well, and that's great. Another way for some therapy dogs to interact with people rather than just being pet, and handled a lot, giving people some suggestions of, you could ask the dog to do a recall, or you could ask the dog to, do their favorite trick, maybe a spin or a bow or something like that.
Good. Well, it looks like Willie is paying attention to us, and Pat is back.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. You've not frozen at all this entire time. All of a sudden, right in the middle of working with Willie, you disappeared on us. I wasn't sure if there was anything else you wanted to show us with Willie.
Yeah, well, let's try his newest trick. We'll see if it'll work. I usually use this for the seniors like it.
Okay.
Did you fart? Hold on. So watch again. Did you fart? So we're working on shaping it so he looks a little bit more at his rear end, but he turns his head and gets really sad.
I like that. I like that. That's a very clever behavior. I can imagine kids would enjoy that too. So
They do.
I'm sure it's not just the senior citizens. That's really fun. And I can imagine that's a big part of being a successful therapy dog team, is being able to have fun with the people that you're interacting with, but do it in a safe way. I think that is really fascinating. Well, one of the things I want to do is I want to be able to bring Juliana on in a minute and talk about some of the questions that guests may have. But first, I wanted to give just a quick shout out and a promo, if I could, about our classes here at the ranch. We have lots of wonderful classes going on here at the ranch all the time, a variety of workshops and seminars. And one of the things that's coming up in August is a seminar called Think Again, Perspectives and Practices for the Experienced Trainer. This is an opportunity for me to talk about things that we learned early on in our career as trainers, but things that perhaps we haven't thought about from an advanced trainer's perspective. And it's a seminar that's been really popular for us here at the ranch. And I'm offering that course in August, the 12th and the 13th. And so if you're interested in joining me for a course like that, please come on out. You can find out more by going to clickertraining.com and click on the ranch, and you can learn all about our courses here at the ranch. I hope to see you out here at some point in the future. So I'm going to ask Juliana to join us and see if Juliana has any questions, or if you've seen questions come up in the chat window, Juliana, that people might have for questions for either Pat or Breanna or both of them.
Yes, I want to remind everyone that if you have any questions about this topic at all or the course, leave them wherever you're watching and they'll show up and we'll be able to ask them on the broadcast. So Kay is wondering about regulation and is asking, is there a certification or just a skills assessment to qualify a dog to do therapy work?
Most of the organizations require their own certification, if you will. So Love on a Leash that I work with has a certain set of criteria that they're looking for, which might be different than TDI or some of the other ones. The certification, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a certified therapy dog, like it goes from place to place. It's more about the insurance. So one group may use the word certification, another one may use, what are some of the others, Breanna?
Yeah, I think some say more the word assessment or different words. And I just want to also point out that for this course, the dogs are not certified for taking the course, right? So we're going through the skills, we're kind of walking people through, but they would still need to go through an organization for that certification or assessment or whatever the organization calls it.
One of the things that we tried to do when we worked with Breanna and Pat to put this course together is to come up with a skill check at the end of the course. But that is our way of saying, if you take the course and Pat or Breanna say you get the skill check from us, it means that we feel that you've demonstrated the skills necessary, that we believe that you could probably pass a formal assessment or a formal certification. We find that people enjoy doing that because it helps them get the skills, get opinions about their skills before they go and actually take the test. Is that probably a good way to put it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So good. Excellent question. I'm glad she asked that question.
And how much these days would you say people are relying on the Canine Good Citizen test? Is that current and updated, like the most progressive thing to do, or what do we think about CGC?
I would say it's probably not, but most of the therapy dog organizations are going to kind of use that as your initial way to judge whether your dog is going to be ready for therapy work. So not that you have to do the CGC, but it's a good kind of guideline to look at before you go and do a therapy dog test.
Would you say that it's sort of like the bare minimum? It's like if you have all of these things, you've at least started down the right path to becoming a therapy dog potentially, but it's just an entry point as opposed to the end all be all.
Yeah, I would say so.
That makes sense. Excellent. And I'm curious, I'm not sure if there's any other questions out there, but I would imagine that there are misconceptions about therapy dogs. And maybe we answered that in the early part of the program when we talked about what is a therapy dog. But are there common misconceptions that people perceive about therapy dogs that maybe are not true, or they misunderstand about therapy dog programs?
I know I get asked a lot by teachers, psychologists that want to bring their dogs to work with them every day. So they want to bring the dogs for an 8-hour shift, whatever, where they work. That's not necessarily a therapy dog, and that's a different insurance requirement. There are very few organizations that will offer the insurance for work assisted type dogs. So therapy dog is really to benefit everybody at that facility who wants to come visit the dog. If you're bringing a dog for work, it's still more for a central group. It might be the classroom that you're a teacher of. It's not necessarily a dog for the whole school. Or if you're a therapist and you're bringing your dog to help, you're helping with each particular client. So it's different insurance regulations as well.
All right, that's interesting to know, and I think that's come up several times. It's realizing that you're going to take your dog out for any kind of a formal program of any kind. You're going to want to have insurance, and I assume that each therapy dog organization sort of suggests or has certain types of insurance that they can offer for an individual to get for their dog and for their therapy dog team. Is that how it works?
Mm-hmm. So the insurance is obviously there to protect them if something happens, if they get sued. It's also, that's another reason for their skill set too, so that you have to pass those skills because they are insuring you. I think most of the organizations will offer insurance if you're certified through them. I know one or two of the organizations, they're actually making you get the insurance. So you have to take out your own umbrella coverage for yourself if you're going to do therapy work. So do your research before you start getting involved with any group and see if that's what works for you.
Well, I was thinking about asking you what kind of challenges are there to becoming a therapy dog trainer, but you may have just explained one of the big challenges is getting to that insurance issue. But from a behavioral perspective and working with a dog, are there common or regular challenges that you have to face in making decisions about training? What are the biggest obstacles that come up from a training perspective?
I'd say the dog's nervousness, like they may start out to be sound, emotionally sound. But if you have a dog that's always going to hospitals, they might start getting a little bit more worried about beeps. Willie, for instance, is starting to develop a little bit of an issue with the microwave going off. And I know that's from spending years being around fluid pumps and things like that. So now that he's doing more libraries, he's a lot more relaxed, and I'm having fewer issues with noise sensitivity around the house.
And this just points back to that question that Breanna brought up earlier about being able to read body language and being able to interpret. I mean, most people can tell when their dog is a little bit fearful, but sometimes it's being able to detect those things early enough that it's before it becomes a major problem, you notice it and shift and make adjustments so that your dog is comfortable. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say one of the biggest issues that I have, and probably one of the ways that I got into kind of therapy work really by accident, was people who really wanted to volunteer and really wanted to make their dog a therapy dog. And what I was seeing was there were some dogs who were just uncomfortable, right? So the person wanted to volunteer, the dog did not want to volunteer. And so I felt like it was really important to talk to therapy dog handlers and to teach therapy dog class talking about the dog. So the problem that I've seen mostly is where the person really, really wants to be the volunteer, and sometimes it's a mismatch where the dog doesn't really want to do that work. So it's making sure that both parties are having a good time, not just one.
Yeah, I was going to suggest, and I think Juliana can speak to this too. I think often as dog trainers, as people who work with clients, it's often I really want to work in agility and I want my dog to be an agility dog, but the dog doesn't want to be an agility dog, or in your case, the dog doesn't want to be a therapy dog. And I do think that that is such an important aspect of what I think we are all talking about, is whatever you want to do with your dog, it's really can't be just what you want. You really need to take into account what your dog wants. And a big part of that is understanding how to read your dog. And I think a lot of non-trainers, of people that are not professional trainers, who are not used to reading their dog, I've often seen people say, oh, my dog loves doing agility. And I watch them and I go, I'm not so sure I agree. And I think that's probably one of the valuable things when you teach about teaching people about interpreting their dog's body language and recognizing it. How do you deal with that mismatch when you have someone who says, I really, really love the idea of going into nursing homes and I want to be a therapy dog trainer and I want my dog to join me. I want to take your class. And if you see that match isn't really there, how do you navigate that? I mean, what do you say, Breanna? How do you, it seems like it'd be a hard thing to say, your dog's not cut out for this. I mean, you need to say that, but you need to find a nice way to say it, I think.
Yeah, if we're doing a really good job, we can say that. So part of it is teaching about that body language, right? And having them speak about their dog's body language. So I would hope as an instructor, I want my clients to be able to tell me what they're seeing their dog do, rather than me just kind of bark at them and say, no, your dog doesn't like this. I want them to see it. And we might talk about some things that they can do. One of the suggestions I've made quite a bit is, particularly working with people who have retired, they really want to kind of become a full-time therapy dog handler. They want to go and volunteer every day at the nursing home or at some different facility, and making the suggestion of, could you go and volunteer on your own, and your dog volunteers once a month, or your dog volunteers twice a month. And so you still get to be a part of whatever volunteer work you want to do. And maybe the dog only wants to do it a little bit, because we see that, Pat and I both see that, where the dog is starting to say, this is really fun. I like this. And then it becomes, okay, I'm fatigued by this. And Pat's one of the rare people who works more than full time and does this. So Willie can't do as much therapy work as a lot of people would like to do with their dog.
Yeah, and I think people would probably understand that if you help them understand that there's probably things that you like to do, but if you did them every single day, you might not enjoy it as much. Your dog is probably is going to be similar to that. I love the approach of getting your client, or the student that's learning to be a therapy dog handler, to evaluate their dog and tell you what they see. And if you can get them to do that with some accuracy, they might come to the decision, oh, I'm not sure my dog would like that. I'm not sure my dog would enjoy that. I'm not sure my dog is the right dog for that. And that's what you're hoping to gear them toward, right, Breanna? Is you're trying to get them to make that decision themselves, as opposed to you saying, no, your dog's not good for this. It's much better if they come to that conclusion on their own.
And it's hard, right? We tend to think that if our dog doesn't like something, that we might feel bad. And what I really want to do as a trainer is help people read their dog, but it doesn't mean that the dog is wrong, and it doesn't mean that the person is wrong if maybe their dog is uncomfortable on slippery floors.
Right.
What's really good is if we can get the person understanding, oh, my dog does not like these slippery floors in this facility, so this is not the right place for us. And so what I really want to do is help kind of connect the dog and the person, where they're reading each other really well. And somebody could say, I need to advocate for my dog right now. And even though my dog has really enjoyed this last 30 minutes of this visit, he's not right now. And we need to go home, right? So the dog always has to be the main priority in therapy work. And I really want people to be able to evaluate their own needs. So if they're saying, I want to stay and I want to volunteer for 6 hours today, well, that's not appropriate for the dog, right? So maybe the dog volunteers for 30 minutes, dog goes home, takes a nap, and you can go back to the facility and do your volunteer work without the dog at that point.
You know, what's interesting, as you were talking about slippery floors, I found myself thinking, where are the places that have slippery floors? And then of course I realized, oh, hospital has slippery floors most of the time. But I would imagine that as a young trainer who's interested in therapy dog work, I might not have ever thought about the fact that this location has these kinds of things. And so can you talk about some of the unique things about the different environments? I mean, Pat brought up the beeping noise of certain machinery and the slippery floors. Those are hospital issues. What are issues with other types of environments that you might teach people about as they learn about working with the therapy dog?
Well, speaking of kind of advocating for dogs, Pat has a really great story about Willie, about volunteering in nursing homes and leading up to volunteering in libraries.
Don't you love it when someone says, she has a really good story? Tell that story.
And I'm staring at her thinking, which story is she talking about? So he used to love nursing homes. He loved going from room to room, but he started getting very tired. He would go visit people in their bed and he was all fine. But within a minute or two, he'd be staring out the door and starting to pant. And I unfortunately didn't pick up on it because we were just going from room to room. And I was just so focused on making sure we're visiting everybody. One day last October, we were in a nursing home and he walked away from the bed and collapsed on the floor on his side looking at me panting. And I was like, all right, it's time to address this. And after that, we did one more visit a month or two later. Right after that collapse, I took him to the vet. We had some x-rays done and severe hip dysplasia was diagnosed. So I started doing physical therapy. We got him back in shape. Now it's all his choice. He wants to just do libraries. That's great. So I always want people to look at therapy visits. I look at it as date time. So if it's the date is fun for him and it's fun for me, that's great. If my partner is not having fun on the date, that's not the right sound. So it should be both of us having a good time about it.
That's a great way to talk about it. Yes.
I also love, so Pat and I both get calls and emails from facilities saying, do you know a therapy dog team that can come to our hospital or library? And I had contacted Pat soon after this had happened with Willie, and she went, nope, I'm not doing that to my dog. And so that, that's what you really want people to do. It's not, well, we have to, right? These people asked for us to be there. Pat said, nope, Willie can't do that. We're not doing that right now. And so they took a pause and then slowly came back, and I think you only do a little bit now, you're not every day or anything like that.
I do his favorite places, so once or twice a month, but I also know how much he loves going to those places. I mean, he knows when we're 2 miles away, he knows what turns we're doing. So I bought him a very large dog stroller. He took to it right away. His choice is to hop in it. We go for walks all around the area. So he's conditioned to it, even though he doesn't need to use it. But that way, if we get to the point he's just too tired, but I know he still wants to go to that library, the library has elevators, he's perfectly happy jumping in his stroller and he can still visit the kids and he's happy about it.
That's nice that you're able to make that change, that adapt to what his needs were after he had the hip problem. So that's really cool. Juliana, did you have any other last questions that you've seen in the chat window or that you wanted to ask about?
Everybody's being pretty quiet today, so the chat is pretty quiet. But remember, if anybody has last-minute questions, put them in there. I have a question, though. You have talked extensively about the importance of a dog being social, and I think sometimes people take basically like a lack of barking and biting as a dog who likes people. What does it look like when a dog actually does like strangers? They're not just tolerating them, or they're not just approaching them to gather information. What does it look like when a dog likes strangers?
I'm looking for a dog that can relax around people, right? So sometimes we see those dogs who start jumping up and licking people in the face and become, lack of better word, using this label of like hyperactive. And people say, oh, he really loves people. And that might not be a dog that's really loving people. I'm really looking for a dog who's a bit more relaxed and comfortable, so they can maybe easily do some tricks or different behaviors, and maybe a dog who can be able to rest around people rather than pacing or whining, jumping. But with that said, I think a lot of times people think their therapy dog must be the robotic, obedient dog, and that's not right. People want to meet a dog, And so dogs can be dogs when they go into these therapy dog sessions. We're just looking to kind of hone in some behaviors, right? So they can't jump on people and rip tubes out from places or things like that. We don't want them injuring people with jumping, or a dog who's pulling on leash and possibly causing an accident in the hallway. So they don't need to be perfect dogs. They just need to be happy to be there with a bit of training.
I know there's been a lot. I see a lot lately, people talking about there is no such thing as a perfect dog. What do you mean by a perfect dog? And I think emphasizing that dogs can be dogs. That's perfectly okay. It's just a question of what you're going to do and what's the right place for them. So I think that's really good information to share with everybody. I'm curious. I'm going to direct this question to Pat first, because Pat has taken on the bulk of the students that have come in through our therapy dog team training course. What have you enjoyed about teaching this course?
Therapy work is my passion. I live to do it. It's my date time with my dog. So it makes me happy to see other people enjoying doing it. And just being able to provide that information, because they come to us with a lot of questions. I don't know if this is right. Or people I've been working with for years, all of a sudden they're asking me questions. I'm not sure if my dog's enjoying it anymore. So we start talking about different options, like I've done with Willie too. So it's letting them still fulfill that desire, but also meeting the dog's needs. So it's my hobby as well as not quite a job, but it just brings everything together for me.
You know what I loved about what you said is, I mean, I love seeing people that have passion about something. And so that always resonates with me. But I love the idea of calling it date time with your dog. It's just such a cool concept. And then that really helps me visualize, yes, I want to have fun, but I want my date to have fun as well. And I think that's such an important thing to think about. So I love those kinds of analogies. And I think that one's really, really good. And I know you've been teaching therapy dog even before doing this course, Breanna. You've taught it before. What do you enjoy about teaching?
Yeah, I really like this idea of being able to do something with your dog and be able to go someplace specifically with our dog, right? So a lot of people want to be social and go places with their dog, but sometimes going to the dog park or going someplace like that might not be the most ideal thing. So having this goal in mind of, we're going to go to the university before students take tests. And this is something that people do, right? So they only go a couple times a year with their therapy dog before big tests happen, and the students get to hang out with the dog. So it's a really clear goal. And it's a kind of a controlled social event versus going to, your family barbecue with your dog. Who knows which dogs are going to be there? Who knows which dogs are on leash, off leash? Who knows what's happening? With therapy dog situations, it's the social event, right? So if we have social people, social dogs, and then we have this fairly controlled environment that we can go and practice these skills in, and hopefully everybody's having a good time and doing what they want to be doing.
Well, that's great. Well, Pat and Breanna, I am so thrilled that you could be with us today. I think this has been really great. And I'm going to conclude by just reading a comment from one of our viewers. This is Carolyn Clark, who says, such excellent information and advice. Thank you all so much. And I echo those statements. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to say, before we leave, I want to do a short little recap and tell you a little bit about what's coming up next month. And so I hope you'll join us here on Live from the Ranch in August. I think it's August. Yes, we're in the beginning of July now. I'm going to have as my guest Sarah McCloudry, and Sarah is a really creative and fun instructor, and we're gonna talk a little bit about how she teaches cooperative care, but she does it through the avenue of teaching tricks and getting people really involved in fun tricks with your dog, but that then can be used to help with medical training. So I think she's going to give us some nice demonstrations, and we'll be able to ask her questions. And I think it will be a unique and fascinating episode. I hope you'll come back for that. I also, excuse me, want to let you know that if you have comments, suggestions for future guests, ideas for things that you'd like to see us talk about on Live from the Ranch, don't hesitate to go to our website, clickertraining.com, and go to the ranch and watch live button. And there's a place for you to put suggestions there. We really appreciate your feedback. And finally, just to wrap up all of the things that we've talked about this week on Live from the Ranch, we want to remind you that we've got a wonderful series of virtual classes. We offer new classes almost every month, and there are 2 classes that are enrolling now or soon. There's a puppy socialization and adolescent dog familiarization with Laura Van Arndock-Baugh. And we have a separation anxiety course, Say Goodbye to Separation Anxiety with Terry Hayward. That will be taking place. The enrollment opens in July on the 12th. And of course, we just talked with Pat and Breanna. Both of them are authors and instructors for our therapy dog course. If you're interested in finding out more about that, go to KarenPryorAcademy.com. And I always am interested in seeing all of the people that come to see us at Live from the Ranch. I would love to see you actually live here at the ranch at one of our courses. And we certainly wanted to promote Think Again, one of our seminars coming up in August. With that having been said, I want to thank Juliana for co-hosting with me today. Thank Pat and Breanna for joining us. And I thank all of you for being our guests here on Live from the Ranch. We'll see you next month. Happy training. Bye.